So the Big Ten had 69 players drafted. If you add together the current Big Ten schools and the new Big Ten schools, I think it was 52 if you don't add in the Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA teams there. However, the SEC with their new additions, I think had 72 or 73, so they still had more than us. I don't know if we want to make that the topic of conversation here, if we want to just talk about the players that were actually drafted. I'm just going to kind of let you guys steer the ship with where you want to go with it. Curt, we'll let you start off here. What's your thoughts on the draft? Obviously, your guy Tyler Nubin going second round there to who was it? The Giants. I think that's a good situation for him, but just your thoughts on the draft overall for the Big Ten players.
Yeah, Tyler Nubin going in the second round. I saw a stat the other day. The Gophs, just a little promo here for the program. The Gophs are one of 13 teams that have a player go in the first or second round of each of the last. Now I don't remember the number, 4 or 5 years. I think it said. I don't remember, but they put up a graphic. Good for Tyler Nubin. Happened for him. I believe he was the first safety taken. But yeah, there's a couple Big Ten standouts that I thought for sure were going to be first round picks, but the heavy offensive draft I feel like pushed them into the second. Jerzon Newton, who I think is just going to be an absolute stud. I thought for sure he would go in the first round. When the Vikings traded back up for their second first round pick, I was really hoping it was going to be him. I'm not mad with what the direction they went, but I thought it might have been Newton just because that is a position they need. And I think he's going to be a great player. And then also Cooper DeJean had a chance in a lot of people's mind to be the first corner. He slid a little bit to the second round. Again, I think he'll be a terrific player. So the Big Ten missed out on a couple, I think, probable first-round picks or would-be first-round picks in a lot of drafts. But, you know, when 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12, that's players are going to get bumped down. But overall, I thought, you know, a lot of Big Ten players went to a lot of spots where they'll be impactful. And, yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, a lot of good situations. I felt like I think Tyler Nubin going to the Giants is a good situation. I really felt vindicated in my pick that Tyler Nubin was the best safety in the country last year. I kind of got some hate from Minnesota fans because I was a little bit hard on PJ Fleck at some points, but I was like, look, I can always say I called Tyler Nubin the best safety in the nation last year, and I truly believed it, man. He was fantastic with everything he did. Larry, your thoughts on how the draft went? Max Melton went second round. He was another one that I was super high on this year. Love to see that he went that high, but just your thoughts, Larry.
Yeah, for a long time, Max Melton's been projected to go in the draft, and this is going back a couple of years. Obviously, his brother, Bo Melton, is with the Packers. Started to come on really late in the season with Love over there and the Packers coming on. That's a family. It's a Rutgers family. Parents went to Rutgers. Even through dark times, Bo came in, and then Max came in, so it's great to see. And I think what you're going to start seeing with Rutgers in the next few years is these defensive backs back under Coach Schiano, defensive back some of the twins, the McCourtys, Daron Harmon, these guys who were defensive backs who were really good for Rutgers. I think you're going to start seeing some more guys go in drafts. And it was nice to see Max kind of set the tone, go in the second round. I think we kind of projected second or third round for him. Seeing him go to Arizona was nice to see in the second round. Kind of everybody took a collective sigh of relief. Hey, our guy went the second day. It's nice to see. I think one of the most interesting things to see here in the Big Ten, more so going forward, is look at all the quarterbacks. When you count the new teams coming in and the teams that were here that went in the draft, these are some serious quarterbacks, some serious talent. Obviously, Penix, obviously Caleb Williams goes without saying. McCarthy, these guys all went, and I think it kind of opens up the Big Ten in some ways to see, who's the new quarterback leaders. It's still a quarterback. I know Big Ten, a little bit in contrast to the NFL as far as being quarterback driven, but the sport's quarterback driven. So all these guys going the way that they did is going to open things up. Obviously, you see Michigan with so many draft picks. They're the national champion. Not really surprising. Nebraska, Northwestern, nobody, but I think they had a couple last year, so it's not like a long drought. And then every other team, I think, pretty much came up with at least a few. So look, I'm looking for Max to start the trend again with Rutgers, getting guys into the draft. Helps with recruiting, helps with notoriety. When they're in the league and they're shouting out the team, helps with Rutgers' notoriety and marketability overall. And I'm really just curious to see, this next quarterback crop come in, because these names are national household names in such a quarterback-heavy draft. They all went relatively early. I wouldn't say early compared to their individual projections per se, but it was just a quarterback-heavy, offensive-heavy draft. And it's going to be interesting to see who the new quarterback leaders are in the Big Ten going forward with all that immense NFL talent leaving.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the quarterbacks is definitely something I want to get into here in just a minute. Talk about definitely Bo Nix going higher than we expected. Michael Penix Jr. going higher than we expected. And yes, Dylan, I do see your comment there. I don't think I can put it up on the screen, but thank you for noticing that. And obviously JJ McCarthy, we'll need to talk about him, his landing spot with the Vikings. And Curt, I'm sure you have thoughts there. But Zack, just your thoughts on the draft overall before we get into some quarterbacks.
Well, I might lead us to the quarterbacks with my thoughts, but I'll start with, I think, a positive, and it's really for both Michigan and Ohio State. I think Michigan had a lot of draft picks, but not a ton of like high round guys. Like you had one first rounder in JJ, had a couple in the second round, but it was a lot of the later rounds that they had guys go, which I think is an indication that some of their elite guys are still there. And I think we all knew that, but Colston Loveland, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Will Johnson, I think you can make an argument that if Donovan Edwards improves, like he could be a better draft prospect than Blake Corum. And so you have a lot of guys, elite guys coming back that, are possibly first, second round picks in next year's draft. I think at least when I first looked at Michigan, projecting to this year, you're thinking, oh, like they're going to have a drop off. But even with all of that talent loss, maybe their best players outside of JJ, they're all coming back. And I think that sets up Ohio State, Michigan again in just a great showdown, because you look at this draft, it's the least amount of Ohio State players drafted, I think, since 2003. Only 4 guys went. There are several guys who declared that did not get drafted. And there's a lot of people saying, well, Ohio State isn't developing. No. They had a ton of guys stay back a year. Guys that could have gone. Like, I think Emeka probably could have been a fringe first-round guy. Denzel Burke, fringe first round, high second round. Like, there's a lot of talent that came back. And so I think you're going to see Ohio State, Michigan continuing to compete at a high level going into this year. My second takeaway is this, and this is not meant to be a shot at the quarterbacks, but I don't know how you can look at the teams that drafted the Broncos, the Falcons, I think it was the Commanders, the Vikings, no offense to you, Curt. I have no problem that they drafted them. I have a huge problem with where they drafted them. And I get it. Part of its value, right? The value of the quarterback position is a lot higher than any other position in football. But I just have a hard time. The Falcons just paid Kirk Cousins, $150 million? Something like that. And now they just went out and got Michael Penix, who's going to be 28 by the time Cousins' contract is up. Like, what are we doing? I think McCarthy makes a little bit more sense, but then Bo Nix to the Broncos, I think Joel Klatt was praising this, and I'm like, does Bo Nix throw the ball downfield? Like, I know he does, and I know Oregon folks on here might slander me here. I just don't understand why 12. Like, I don't understand why out of all the quarterbacks, like of all the draft classes that could have had 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12, why is it this one?
I think you're seeing, and this is more NFL oriented, but I think you're just seeing the league is so driven and what's oriented toward the quarterback position that teams are impatient. They rush. They're desperate to get something in for the fans. I agree with you on the overall class. And there was so much hype about some of these guys, Penix in particular, and not saying he didn't have a great college career, not saying he didn't, do what he had to do to position himself to get some hype. But you see all these different models, for a long time, and still most of the time, the pervasive rationale is we're going to get guys in. They're going to start right away. The fans are going to get excited. You hit the ground running. You either have it or you don't. The other side is some of these vets, they're mediocre or they're moderate, like, Cousins. And look what Jordan Love did in Green Bay. You sit them a little longer. You go with the old school model. If the guy's a tweener who we don't think can hit the ground running, maybe we snatch him up before somebody else gets him and we develop him for a few years. I'm not, by the way, co-signing this philosophy. I just think the NFL is so desperate for that position now that they're cycling through guys quicker. They don't want to wait around for somebody to catch on. They're at the same time kind of getting somebody in case that guy fails. And they know a guy like Cousins, yeah, he's been paid a lot. Yeah, he's been pretty good in the regular season. But is he going to get you over the hump? And if not, we're bringing this kid along who's got that lightning in a bottle. Maybe, but he needs to develop. And I think it's more a manifestation of what's going on in the NFL that's affecting college, as opposed to, wow, this particular class just had something that made the NFL, take notice. I think we're going to see more and more of this, where us college football fans who keep an eye on this are like, really? But the NFL keeps it. Because there's guys that don't pay attention to college football, and when the draft comes along, whoever's on Mel Kiper's board or whoever they can get highlights of, they're starting like a buzz for 3 months about guys that we are looking like, well, really though? So I think we're going to see more and more of that. That's just my take.
I think you make a really good point about bringing guys in and, putting the pressure on them too early. That is what I actually did like about the Falcons pick, is that you do have Kirk Cousins for at least 2 years. And if you look at that contract, the bulk amount of his pay really is in the first 2 years. So you really could see Michael Penix Jr. coming in and playing when he's 26 rather than 28. I'm not trying to say it was the best idea ever, but, just because of Michael Penix's age. But, the guy that I do have a little bit of concern with, and I'm not trying to be a hater here, Curt, I'm going to let you talk about it more than me, but, I told Zack, in full transparency, I ranked JJ McCarthy as the second best Big Ten prospect going into the NFL draft. He was my second best prospect behind Caleb Williams. I said he's behind Bo Nix. I said he's behind all these guys. He was my second best, only behind Marvin Harrison Jr. So I'm not trying to be a hater here. I'm just looking at it, and it's like, in my mind, JJ is set up so much better if you let him sit and learn for a year or two and then give him that starter job, especially with how young he is. He was only 3 years in college. However, you're looking at a situation where 21-year-old JJ McCarthy is going to be thrust into a starting quarterback position, and Michael Penix Jr., 24-year-old, who, was 6 years in college, he's going to be able to sit for 2 years. I look at it and I'm just like, man, if JJ McCarthy had those 2 years, I see so much of a brighter future for him. But Curt, I'm interested in your thoughts overall with JJ McCarthy being drafted by the Vikings. As a Vikings fan, I know.
Yeah. So JJ was, I knew a real possibility, just because I know, it was reported that we wanted Drake May, but the Patriots didn't want to budge. So it was more and more likely that JJ was going to be the guy they zoned in on. I was happy they didn't have to give up the second first rounder for him. So anyway, now that we got him in the building, I can live with it. He didn't have to throw a lot for Michigan to be successful in college. So I think he will sit a year. I know Sam Darnold isn't going to light the NFL world on fire, probably being the starter for the Vikings, but I do think that was important to Kevin O'Connell in getting JJ. It's like, I like his arm. I like his athleticism. I like all of his physical abilities in the offense he ran in college. But the report is at least that KOC has like a strict guidelines, if you will, of benchmarks that JJ has to hit in order for him to be able to get the starting role or start this season. So I think if everything goes according to plan, that they will sit JJ all this first year. And I do like his arm. I do like his athleticism. It's something that Vikings fans haven't really had a lot. I mean, Cousins has a good arm, but he's not very athletic. So, having a potentially more playmaking quarterback would be exciting. I hope it works out for them, but I'm with you. I want him to sit a year. I don't want to see him the first year. I think he's got a much better chance succeeding if he sits and learns.
And I totally, like, I read the same thing, that Sam Darnold is going to take, it for a year, and then JJ will have to hit these things. I totally believe that they think that, but what happens when it's week 5 and Sam Darnold just threw 4 interceptions? Yeah. like when you have the hot commodity, the national champion, and JJ McCarthy is sitting on the bench right there, you have Justin Jefferson. I don't know, maybe he pulls an OBJ and starts kicking stuff over. I don't know, but he just starts going crazy, and you're like, play the national championship quarterback, play the guy. And Sam Darnold's sitting over the side, like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, like this guy's a failed starter. This guy's a failed starter in the NFL. We know Sam Darnold is not a starter in the NFL. Are the Vikings really going to be willing to say, let's take a year and just not be, what we think we should be, because we have Sam Darnold, and just neglect the national championship quarterback? I believe that they have that plan. I just don't know if I believe they're going to go all the way through with it. Zach, am I crazy? What do you think?
I don't think you're crazy. It's weird because JJ, I mean, the good thing about Minnesota is that they do have weapons around him. Like, if you're going to throw somebody in early, I know the plan's Sam Darnold. I agree with you. I think they're probably going to pull him at some point, but he's got Justin Jefferson. That's a pretty good get out of jail free card right there. And so, which is not to say like it could be a worse situation. Like it could be the Bears, right? Like who they don't know.
A good situation this year.
Right. For the first time. Did you guys see CJ Stroud rip the Bears? By the way, he was like, why didn't they do this for Justin? Which I'm not bitter, not at all. As an Ohio State fan, not bitter at all. But I think that there is like, it's not a completely bad situation like the Bears of 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Like, so I think I see where your concerns, Jared, and I agree with them. But I think I'm a bit optimistic. Like I thought JJ was overdrafted, and I think he has the tools in the NFL to succeed even as a rookie because he has the athleticism and because he doesn't have the arm strength. I just wonder what it's going to be like for him to go into a much more complex NFL offense because Curt, I think you're right. Michigan designed their offense in such a way where JJ didn't have to do a lot of that. It's not that he can't, it's just we haven't seen it.
Right.
Yeah, look, I'm thinking about JJ. I'm thinking about watching him in Michigan and what he did, and I am seeing exactly what you're saying, Zach. We haven't seen him do everything. We know he has the talent. We keep hearing about it. He's obviously talented. He's a national champion. But I think he would benefit from sitting. I think we all, if we follow the Big Ten, we kind of see that. I also think, JR, your position makes perfect sense because we see it every year in the NFL.
Yep.
This isn't even Kirk Cousins, Darnold, okay? This is that guy who's like on his last leg. He's literally like Cousins. You're like, all right, we're going to give Kirk. Kirk's the guy. We're going to give him a couple years. Darnold's like, bro, stand there and fill that role and don't die behind that, and I'm not even saying Minnesota because they have a team, like you said, Zach, but he's literally the fall guy who like they're just waiting and seethingly waiting in the stadium for him to get out of the way so that the vaunted rookie could come in. They always try starting that guy, and then always 4 or 5 games in, they're chanting for the rookie. Now, the thing sometimes happens is that rookie goes in with that supreme talent and that good supporting cast and lights it up for 1, 2, 3 games, and then people get really excited. And then all of a sudden, when defenses start catching up to him, it could stun his growth pretty bad. So I'm just curious about what happens because JR, Sam Darnold, man, we've seen Sam. We know Sam, okay? They're not going to sit around watching Sam unless Sam comes out swinging. He goes 6-0, 5-1, 4-2. Then there's something to be said. But if he comes out and he's struggling, they're going to be cheering. In addition to the skull and the drum and everything else in that place, they're going to be chanting for JJ.
So here's all I would say on that is I think as a Vikings fan, obviously, I think we think pretty highly of KOC and his ability to work with quarterbacks. So I think in a way that will protect Sam a little bit. And I do not want to be turned into the Sam Darnold defender here. I don't want that. But he was in absolutely terrible situations on both the Jets and the Panthers. Those teams sucked across the board. Like they had nothing on offense at all. He's never had anything like what he's going to have with the Vikings. We have a great left. We have 2 really good tackles. You have Jordan Addison to complement Jefferson, and you also have TJ Hawkinson, and now we also have Aaron Jones. So I don't think Darnold's going to be required to do a whole lot. I really do think it's kind of just try and let him manage it this year and then turn it over to JJ next year. But obviously it could go south. I mean, the NFC North is a pretty good division on paper right now with all that offensive talent. So there could be pressure to force JJ in there and see what you got. But I'll trust KOC for now.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. All right, Curt. I hope your Vikings do well, just for you, man.
Thank you.
I hope they do well.
It's been a long life of misery with them. But
well, I just for a quick.
it.
Well, I'm actually a Miami Dolphins fan. It's a side note. So I was actually at the game against the Giants when they played Minnesota back in '99, I think, and I saw Chris Carter throw a touchdown pass to Randy Moss. And it's iconic, and I was right there, like 3 rows from it. So that's my Vikings memory. I like the Vikings. I just dig the whole cold weather, the whole tradition. The old school. I like the Vikings, so I'm cheering for you too.
Thank you.
There's a really important question that might elevate JJ McCarthy's value. Did Connor Stallions get to come along?
There's no signs in the NFL, Zach.
Oh, right. My bad.
Yeah, he won't be able to read them.
I'm sorry, Yankee. I had to get one in there.
Yankees coming after you here in a